Today marks the 20th anniversary since the September 11 attacks. In this podcast, we're going to talk about what happened and how it impacted us and why we still remember it today. To discuss this, I'm joined by AD. How you doing?
Evening, mate. I'm good. You?
Yeah, not so bad, mate. Not so bad. And becoming somewhat of a regular on these podcasts.
Yeah, it is now. Oh. Thank you again for the invite, boys.
We'll have to stop charging a fee for him.
Actually, I thought it was the other way, but carry on.
You can send us your invoice. So look, lads. Obviously, yeah. Today, 20 years on since that famous day in New York City when 2,977 victims lost their life. I know it's officially 2,996, but I'm not going to count the 19 terrorists that died as well on that day. So yeah, 2,977. I suppose the first question will be is, do you remember where you were when it happened?
Give me a minute. I think that's for the dad's first, isn't it?
Yeah, but the strangest thing is that with having quite a lot of friends in the military, it's like I can kind of remember because thinking, that's a war. I just remember it. So not going to lie, I have looked back and had a look at just now, just to quickly just remind myself of the actual day it was, which was a Tuesday. Yeah, I wasn't a bit. I mean, so I was. It was kind of obviously a little bit later in the day here, wasn't it? But from what I remember, and I just finished college, and I think I just got home, and there it was, and I remember just thinking, wow, what the hell is that all about? And I was literally watching it, obviously live, and obviously it happened, and there was smoke billowing out of the first tower. And then I remember like sat there with my mum and saying to her, I said, "That's another plane!" Literally at that split second, bang, second one, unbelievable. It was like the worst thing you could ever watch, kind of on live TV. And obviously, there's a bit of pandemonium. I remember from the newsreaders, kind of thinking, kind of clarifying, like, was that was another plane that's just hit? So that's where I was. Yeah, been at college, and I just got home.
Yeah, I remember watching it. I was watching it on the news, and I think I remember the confusion at first because it was like, oh my god, a plane's hit the Twin Towers. Everyone was like, what the hell's going on? And then, yeah, literally, we were all watching, the same broadcast pretty much. And then the second plane smashes into it, and you're like, shit, this is not an accident. It can't be an accident.
No, exactly that.
Where was I? I think I was.
I think you were probably with me at college.
Probably. Well, we were probably down the fucking sweet place, weren't we? Getting like bags of sweets.
Do you know? So I actually think it was. I think we were at the Duke of Wellington.
Oh, yes.
I think that's where we were. Because I remember watching it on the screen.
Okay. What, like Broadgate going up Lincoln Hill? As in, it's in Wow, Linda Mill, sorry. Yeah, wow. That's a place, that is.
That's where we used to go for lunch, didn't we? We used to go play. We used to go play pool with a portion of chips. Because it was free pool if you brought a drink and something to eat.
Oh, they had you up line in sinker, didn't they? Yeah, that sounds like.
I remember seeing watching the broadcast. I remember when I did get home. I do remember seeing the news, and it was just a shot of people like in a calf, and there was just smoke pillowing, and it was just everyone was like, it was all like you said, all pandemonium, and everyone was thinking, what is that? It was just ash and everything and debris. But I do remember that stayed in my mind, that image of just all this black pillow and smoke, and people stood there just screaming and at a calf.
I also remember there was a particular part. I mean, and again, I can't obviously confirm this information. I mean, you guys might know a little bit more than me, or any of your listeners might, Marco. But I remember there was a there was a part that they were looking at a fight. There was a firefighter after the first tower, and they were talking to him. And I think it's later come out that they were doing some kind of documentary on the fire service, and they were videoing like a gas leak that had been called out to, or a supposed gas leak. But I remember him saying, he said that you got to understand. He said that the planes don't fly over that part of Manhattan. It was that's just not it's no way going to be a flight path. So he said the minute he heard a plane before it even hit the first one, I remember thinking, well, that's odd. So I think that's what made me, again, you think when he tells that and then seeing the second one, you think, ooh, that's deliberate.
They released that documentary. Actually, I've seen it.
It's a French one, wasn't it? It was a French one. Yeah, I've definitely seen it since. They
were filming the fire station, and I saw they were filming. And then they, like you said, they're talking about how the planes don't fly that low, and then boom, second one flies in and smashes into the second tower.
Unreal.
It got me thinking this morning, because obviously when we were talking about doing this podcast, I was trying to sort of reconcile the number of casualties that were there, and I was thinking back to, do you remember? Do you know what the worst terrorist attack is in the UK?
Do you know what the London bombings was it?
The worst is in casualties. Do you know what the worst one is?
Would it be one of the football stadiums?
No.
I don't know.
It was in the 70s.
Was it one of the IRA things from the Manchester one? Was it at all?
No, for the Manchester bombing didn't kill anyone. We just got a new Marks and Spencers.
Wow. Okay.
No, it was Lockerbie. It was a Lockerbie bombing. 270 people that died in the Lockerbie bombing. And then I thought, okay, well, that was. Well, I don't really remember that one. I don't remember. I was dead. I wasn't even alive. But we obviously hear about it. You hear about the Lockerbie bombing and all that sort of stuff. But then I thought, well, let's think about one that was in our memory, and then so we think about how bad the Manchester bombings were, right? And how that touched the nation, but 23 people died in that. You compare that to for 3,000, nearly 3,000 people that died in that single day. There, it's just
it's the comparable, isn't it? It sounds really bad, but it's not what we're used to over here. We're not used to this kind of thing. I mean, we're not privy to a lot of stuff that gets thwarted and things like that, but. Yeah, we're not used to that. Whereas we like to think of ourselves as this little
island and protected, yeah,
that nobody really
insulated from what really could happen.
Exactly, yeah. We're sheltered, aren't we? And we're sheltered from a lot of stuff. But you're right. We did touch the hearts because, I mean, it's still now, isn't it? It's still relevant. It's still things going around about Manchester bombing and all of that stuff. England and. Yeah. Go on.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, because obviously with an event like this comes lots of conspiracy theories about what happened, what didn't happen. Do you subscribe to any of them? Because there's a couple of trains of thought, isn't there? There's either it was an inside job, or either they let it happen.
Yep.
They assisted with it. So, because some people consider that there was a controlled demolition, so obviously there had to have been some input from somebody in there. Some people have said that there was no planes at all. Holographic plane theory. That's a funny one. I've seen that. So,
smoking.
Do you subscribe to any of these conspiracy theories, or do you have any opinion on whether the government knew, didn't know, assisted, didn't assist?
It's one of those, isn't it? Without being rude to our friends across the pond, they get involved in so much shit and backhanded stuff. You wouldn't put it past the government and things to have had a hand in it, because look what they did with like the drug trade and everything. They supplied a lot of stuff,
arms.
Yeah, they supply a lot of wars. So, in one hand, you won't put it past them, but I'd like to think more so there was no involvement and it was a pure, terror attack.
I've obviously this has been a mega interest of mine, and I've obviously looked at some of these, probably some are credible, like holographic things and stuff like that is bullshit. I just think there's a lot of things that make you just think that's interesting. Such things from insuring the towers a couple of weeks before were reinsured for acts of terrorism. There was a massive. There was some trading irregularities, weren't they? If you remember at the time, yeah. So I know that a couple of that was another thing that said. I mean, the one thing for me that I think that casts an eye over, maybe there might have been an agenda of letting it potentially to go ahead, is it in this country if a plane turns off a transponder. AD will know more than anybody, but QRF is bang, it's gone. And that NORAD in America, there wasn't a response. That's what as soon as that first plane would have hit, I would have thought that would have been fighters all around watching every air, and it reeks a little bit like, well, wow, okay, so that's odd, because that doesn't really stack up with how America like to flex. That's one thing that I would question.
Yeah, a lot. Well, airspace stuff like that is, if anything, encroaches onto. So the firefighter in the documentary saying there's no flight path here, there's no planes. Anything that would enter anywhere near that, even close to it, it'd be
scrambled.
Called, called and called with no contact. You'll have fighter jets scrambled. That's standard.
I watched an interview today with I don't know which, he was an air traffic controller on the day of 9/11, and somebody put that conspiracy to him. So somebody was like, exactly that, why, how could that be possible without you scrambling the jets? And he'd made the point that he said that there had been so many cutbacks in the period before September the 11th that they only had 6 jets on the whole east coast of the States.
Convenient for one of the biggest superpowers in the world. And again, that's the questions. The questions is, it seems like a lot of things were moved, and kind of excuses formed prior, and irregularities with certain stuff. But do I think? Let me go for it. Let's answer this one. Do I think America would blow that up? They blow them 2 towers up in a demolition format. Let's just say that happened to start a war. My saying to that is, I would severely hope that wasn't true. It's beggars belief watching the videos of how they exploded. It's not all these biggest brains in the world, and they'll never ever solve that. They are split down the middle with that. So I think there's, like I said, I think I like to bat the ideas with you guys, but you'll never know. I mean, there's a lot of things irregular.
You're talking about a false flag, right? Now, in 1962, and this is from classified documents from the US State Department, the CIA were planning a false flag terrorist attack on US citizens in the US to justify a war with Cuba. And it was called Operation Northwood, I think. Mm-hmm. So it's been thought of before. I mean, I'm not subscribing to that theory, but I'm just saying that these false flag operations do exist, and they have been in the thoughts and minds of American politicians in the past.
Well, look what they set up off the back of it. They set up the Department of Homeland Security. So that was formed after this. They were like, we're commissioning this. That's a whole nother governmental department that's been, I wouldn't say profited from it. I don't mean it that way, but that's come out of it. And some could argue and say, well, they had to set it up in case this happens again. Really? There's enough departments of every military avenue you can go down, especially in the States.
You've just got the questions, honestly, that have been for 20 years in my head is, how does a guy, and I think I raised this on a previous thing, is how does a guy sat in a cave probably at the time, mastermind, such a slick thing. I mean, if you actually look at the timeline of how everything was, the amount of people they had there, the expertise, let's just say, some of them maneuvers of them planes were absolutely unreal. It literally defy physics. It's a lot of pilots say, but it was an absolute, what I would say is it is an unbelievable professional job. And I don't see how a bunch of dummies. So I think there's, like I said, there's definitely something stinks somewhere.
I think there's too much credence paid to the fact that they couldn't fly, though. And again, I watched another program recently where they had 5 conspiracy nuts from the UK actually, and they took them over to America, and so there was 5 or 6 conspiracies. One of them was exactly that: they can't fly. How could you fly a plane? So they took a woman who's never flown a plane in her life. They took her up. She flew. Then they goes, right, now you've got the control. You can fly this plane. And she flew the plane. She even landed it under the instruction of this guy. And the pilot made the point that actually flying a 747 or 757, wasn't it, is easier than the little plane that she was flying. So they made the point that it's not that difficult to maneuver and line something up if you're going to do it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that there was. They were skilled to the fact of the story goes that they learned to fly when they come to the US, and I do believe that may be a training over a year, whatever time they had, they probably could fly. But I'm just saying it was to go in and out of the skyline. I mean, and make them particular maneuvers on course. I just think that it's, like I said, they've had some fantastic training.
Did you hear about the 5th pilot that actually got arrested before it?
He did make the plane on one of the later flights, wasn't it?
No, he was arrested. He was actually arrested because it's only. Have you seen the Turning Point documentary on the Netflix?
Yeah.
So they talk about it on there. There was a 5th pilot, and he was arrested, I think, about a month or so before, because flight officials flight instructors started to become suspicious of him, because when he first went into the plane, he said he wasn't worried about landing. He just wanted to learn how to fly. So they reported him.
That trigger. Well, there you go. So something that minor triggered that reaction.
Yeah.
And then everything else went completely underneath the radar. Excuse the pun.
But have you seen? So there was the FBI? The CIA drafted a memo about 2 or 3 of the hijackers. But because the agencies don't speak or didn't speak at the time, the memo actually never got to the FBI to stop them. So the CIA knew that these people had been in Singapore planning this attack. They knew they'd flown to the US, but the memo didn't get sent to the FBI because the communication between the CIA and the FBI was so slack. It just didn't happen.
They said it was multi-organizational failures on every level, really, wasn't they?
That happens all the time, even over here, doesn't it? It happens all the time. You'll get somebody that's wandering the streets and they're on some list. And this.
But it happened today.
The local police.
It's happened today, haven't they? They've just gone and got that Afghan commander out of a hotel that's in quarantine that's come across. Have you not seen it?
No.
This morning, a raid this morning, bang, straight into the hotel, lifted him. No one knows what it's about. And they can detain him up to 2 weeks, can't they, on terror offences, apparently. So that's happened this morning. So they've got intel from somewhere, and the guy's been in the country all of, a week, whatever, So, like you said, the watch lists are. And again, the guy from the MI6 came out again this morning and said, you do know there's 31 credible threats, terrorist attacks in the UK, to come off from America for a minute, that they have thwarted since lockdown.
Yeah,
31, and and that's from tapping this. And I get the fact of we are now 20 years on, and maybe it is rife, and maybe a lot more things are eavesdropped and listened into and monitored, and there's a lot more, kind of tech. But there's always been spooks that have been listening into these. They've always got an inkling, haven't they? Like they might not know the exact time and whatever, but the idea of X and Y, and this is what we think, and it's a plane that's involved. Is definitely, it was definitely in the capabilities back then.
Yeah, 100%. Something that grand doesn't get planned and talked about and everything without it going unnoticed.
No.
it can't do. But I'm at your point, Mark. I think the whole conspiracy side of it, we would just never know. I just try not to waste my energy thinking, because you can go down so many rabbit holes.
Oh yeah, I've done it. For a long time, I subscribed to the theory that they knew about it. Like you said there, they foil terror plots every single day. They know pretty much what's happening, where it's happening, who's doing it, what they have for breakfast. Like, they know. And I always subscribed to the theory that it was an inside job, in as much as
they probably had an inkling.
I think they knew it was happening. They probably wanted to go to war. They needed that false flag operation, and they probably assisted in the demolition of the towers. That was my theory for a long, long time. That's what I always sort of thought. Because just moving on to the demolition, the toppling of the towers. How do we feel about the way those towers went down? Because we all know, and the theories go, controlled demolition. There's been, and we touched on this on the previous podcast, AD. There's been 3 buildings in the history of high-rise buildings, Daz, that have toppled due to fire, and they were all September the 11th, New York City.
Mm-hmm. No, I know that information, and I think if you remember the £1 million drop game, and you had that £1 million today, and you had controlled demolition, or if it was the fact of it was the fire, I know where I'd edge my money after. If they said this is the video, and you watch, if they give you that little snapshot of a plane's hit this tower, but what's made it go down? It was a weird thing. I mean, there's no logical, to my knowledge. The physics have tried to answer. Every scientist underneath the planet and there's obviously a lot of concealed information, and people have given it expert. Apart from NIST, is it? I think was the one that conducted the main one, but nobody else has really got access to a lot of that kind of classified data. I mean, it would have been. They're saying how would. I suppose the question is how the hell would they have managed to plant kind of thermite, whatever they've used to make that explosion over? I mean, you're going to have to put a lot of it, and over a period of time. How does that go unnoticed?
I watched today. It would have needed to have been each tower over 100 detonation points.
Wow, that's huge. But then again, like I said, to even know that information, like I said, that information is available. As in, well, actually, if we wanted to do this, and if we're going to do it, what we need to make sure is that we got, when it hits it comes all the way down.
Yeah.
There was one thing I read that they said that the buildings were designed that if anything was to happen, they were designed to actually crumble in the state of a demolition to limit the impact, to limit the debris and everything blowing out. So they were designed
to fall like they did.
To fall like a demolition.
But what they were made out of was designed also not to fall. That's the other thing.
Do you know what though? I get that, but do you know? So it was designed. Again, I saw this today. It was designed to take the impact of a Boeing 707, I think it was, which is sizably smaller than 757, with carrying a lot less fuel. So though it was designed to take a smaller plane. But one thing I didn't know, and I don't know if you guys knew this, the structure of the building, most of its structure strength came from the outside of the building. Did you know that? I didn't know that. So obviously I was always thinking that's why I sort of subscribed to the theory of it must have been brought down. But then if you think about it, so someone today gave me the example of, if you take an empty can, a beer can, right? You push the top of that beer can, it can be as strong as hell, right? If you put a slight dint in the side of that beer can, it goes boom, you flatten it. And that was the guy was explaining to me today, not to me, on this video, about the difference of the Twin Towers. So the Twin Towers intact, it would, but then because there was that massive hole in the side of the building that it completely fractured the structure integrity.
Yeah.
I think it's the heat. They'll never know the exact temperatures, and like I said, if the structure, as you just said, is if it's pinned from the outside as it was.
Yeah.
But the credible thing is, like I said, and I've seen that documentary as well, where they say this is what happened. The with the fuel that was spilled into the elevator shafts, and it took a while for them to heat up in the corners, and then eventually they just, like you said, they buckled.
Yeah.
And it's, again, the point of where it hit, it sends it up and down. And once it starts, I suppose it is like a domino effect, isn't it? I suppose once one goes, it's easy then the that much weight that, the second, third, fourth, fifth, and then the speed pick.
Well, have you seen that again? I think it's on Netflix. It's called Calls from the Towers. Have you seen that?
I've seen quite a lot of them, mate. But I don't
it was where people that were in the building were calling and leaving voicemails for the families. And one of the things that struck me in a lot of the calls that were being made from people that were in above the impact zone is a lot of them were saying that the walls were starting to crumble and the ceilings were coming down. And again, on the outside, not hearing any of that, you just look at it, you think, nah, it can't be. How the hell's that happened? It's not possible. But then when you hear, so that with the finding out that the structure of it is supported by the outside, the inside is starting to crumble, and the ceilings are coming in from people that are actually in there. You start to go, actually, yeah, it makes more sense.
Starts building on.
It makes more sense the way it did go down.
Yeah, it tries to keep the shell because it's to do with rebuilding, but then it comes back to the fact that coincidentally, like you said, Daz, they insured it.
Yeah,
not so long before.
And they're the questions like you said, though, you're never going to get the answers. But there's a lot of, like I say, it absolutely stinks. Some of the points that people bring up about the some of the conspiracy things. Have you heard the one about the there was a group of Israelis filming? Have you heard that one? They were filming from a white van a couple of streets away. And they were spotted acting. They were being monitored themselves, which they think that's another one of these conspiracies. That they were seen to be in that location, videoing early doors to So, was there any involvement there? Then there's ISI have been mentioned in Pakistan. Maybe were funders behind it, or was it Saudi? Was it the Saudi group? Was it there's that many different ones. You just what money would it take for you to, like you said, to work under a false flag if they were in on it that way, or like you said, or was it just planned and they did it and they thought actually, this if this happens, we're straight in there.
Do you know? So I'm quite comfortable now with the fact with the story of the Twin Towers. I buy what's been said, that how it happened. Again, I'm still on the fence whether they knew about it, but I still buy the story of how it fell. What I don't understand is Tower 7, Building 7.
Yeah,
because that didn't get hit by a plane, and that definitely looked like a controlled demolition.
But that was hours after. That's like 5:20 in the evening after that got hit at 9 o'clock or whatever it was.
It didn't get hit, did it? It wasn't hit.
But it was the debris of everything. So the story behind that, as well, as far as what I believe it is, the debris hit that and it was on fire for most of the day. They were treating it and realised that actually it's just getting out of control and that the resources may have been needed elsewhere. So by the time they kind of got back round to see it was out of control, and like you just said, that was a slightly different structure, and it was something more. They're saying what happened on the inside of that you couldn't see, but obviously a notable building of interest.
The CIA Black Ops building.
a lot of files in there for.
Well, speaking of notable buildings getting hit, so they're moving on to the Pentagon.
The one that you went. Did you hear it? Did you see it?
So, what I find, again, I'm not a conspiracy buff, but what I find really interesting about this one. So, was it the day before 9/11 or the week before? One of the I don't know what like the Chancellor of America's called, but the person who handles the money, right? Let's just call him that. He's on the White House lawn saying that they've lost $3.5 trillion. They don't know where it is.
Yeah.
It's all in this accounting file in the Pentagon. And then on September the 11th, that exact office is blown to pieces.
And all the files are in World Trade Center 7. That's where the files were held. being investigated from that particular part of the Pentagon.
And they pulled all the resource from there to go to the others. Again, you can read into it, can't you? You can read into it and go, everything's falling into place there. If you were to write it down, you'd go,
yeah,
that's...
Well, though it has come out years afterwards, they reckon that there is this $3 trillion was never missing. But then again, there's no proof now, so it's easy to say that. I know there was a bit of speculation before, and it was supposed to be being investigated, but apparently that investigation, the evidence that they'd collated to that date, was actually the conspiracy theorists had kind of run away with that as well and said, look, this is what we think, and it built and built and built, and then it wasn't really. Yeah, you'll never know now, because like I said, it's a big carpet to brush some stuff under that.
But so like we touched on the NORAD, the air defense system, and I sort of you can give them a pass for New York. I mean you can give them a pass for that, but the Pentagon and the White House, you ain't getting anywhere near that building. No. Like, they are so protected.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all over that country to stop anything.
Yeah, I mean, I said it's such a big, like I said, it's just such a powerful thing that the minute and again, AD is definitely more qualified in this than me from his past, but the minute that they're hit, like every plane is watched, and they have got fighter jets over every major city, every big air landmark, thinking, right, we're under attack. Is it? And everything's going to be shot down. If there's any if they think that transponder's gone off after that happened, they're not going to even take a chance.
No, they wouldn't get. Have you? What film is it? It's one of the White House down films. Like, there's several different ones, but there's one where there's an aircraft that encroaches on, and straight away there's missiles pop out the ground from nowhere and just shoot at it. But they fire flares and it did whatever. But it's that sort of thing. There's so much that we would never know about what's set up and what exists, what doesn't exist. Nothing is encroaching on that. It would never. If something got anywhere close to that, there's an issue. Like, there's definitely an issue.
And the other thing is about like you just said, AD, is the biggest thing is if you look at the flight paths, they are they're ridiculous. I mean, a lot of them have done big U-turns to come and hit them things. So the minute after that's happened, and like you said, let's just excuse New York. Let's just say that they made a fuck up there. Excuse my French, but you ain't getting anywhere. No. You ain't getting anywhere near the Pentagon. Would be my initial thoughts.
Now look at it over here. As soon as an airliner goes quiet for a bit or goes off their flight path, we scramble the jets here. How many times do you read it in the news that they've scrambled the jets to?
And they had to meet them in the North Sea straight away in 6 minutes' time. Done.
Yeah, exactly. So
So I think the best shot is kind of not a very great bit of CCTV really, but this conspiracy behind the Pentagon is it was hit with a missile rather than a plane. But they are saying that they could actually, there is debris there from a nose cone, an undercarriage, parts of a plane. So I'm not really sure that
they obliterated down.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of eyewitnesses that kind of, not a lot, but the eyewitnesses that did see it said it was definitely a plane. So I don't think it was a government strike from a missile. I don't buy that one.
No. What about, I just want to pay tribute to the firefighters and the police officers, the first responders that died in the attacks in New York City. I think 400, wasn't it? Firefighters and police officers in total. I heard a really interesting story of the guy called Chief Oreo Palmer. Did you ever hear his story? No. He was a chief of New York Fire Department, and he was like super athlete. He used to run these mental marathons, all that sort of stuff. He was one of the only people. He was one of the only. Which one came down first? The South.
Yeah.
He was one of the only firefighters to make it to the 78th floor where the plane impacted. He literally charged up there, fixed the radio on the way up, and he was talking on the radio as he got to the 78th floor. Then obviously it come down, but 78 flights of stairs carrying a 60-pound
bag. Yeah,
he did. Unbelievable.
To get up there.
superhuman, mate. Superhuman. Any frontline person, whatever job they are, whether it's fire, police, medical, whatever. It's a vocation. So they don't see it as they can stand and go, like, sod it, I don't get paid enough for that.
Yeah.
Vocation. They're there to help, and that's they truly believe. And it's shown it. They were selfless.
Yeah.
They went straight in. Like some of them, you've seen some of the videos, they were hanging. Absolute hanging. And they were just getting a drink, washing the ash and everything off their face, and going back in.
Yeah.
Like, questions.
Unbelievable heroes. No, unbelievable.
Even members of the public going, we're getting involved in this. It shows your, I won't say moral compass. It shows, if you've got a bit about you, like that kind of calling, isn't it?
Daz, it was like that video you shared with me of the guy that killed Bin Laden, where he talks about why he does it and the 2% chance of success. And one of the reasons was the lady who was holding down her skirt to protect the dignity. But the other one was for the firemen and the people, the first responders that rush into these scenes where there's, they could be their last ever chance, and that's the reason why they go into war and they're not bothered about the fact that there's a 2% chance of coming back.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly, because you can't. I don't think you can ever pay enough tribute to them. I don't think you can ever just say thank you. They've engraved names and 52 plaques or whatever they've done.
Have you been to it? Have you been to the memorial?
Nah.
It is both.
I don't think I could.
It is stunning and.
Is it eerie? That's what. Yeah. A lot of people said that.
I don't think I could.
It is like we went. Do you know? So I went in 2003 for the first time, where it was. You go to Ground Zero and it was construction. It was a site still. It was, and then I've been back recently and it's like the memorial. It's beautiful. It's amazing what they've done with it. To leave the foundations and the waterfalls with the names of all the casualties around it. I think that, but you are struck with a sense of understanding what happened here.
Yeah, it's devastating, mate. It's devastating, isn't it? It changed the course of so many people's history, life, world, everything. It turned everything on its head, and then look at the consequence of it.
Yeah.
Still to this day, to the day. Yeah, exactly. It's
unreal.
And like I said, we'll never get over it. It's 20 years on.
Yeah.
America definitely won't, because to be attacked like that on their on their home country, it's the absolute unthinkable.
Was it modern Pearl Harbor, wasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of stuff about that, wasn't it? Whether they may have had a bit of a thing, but wanted to rally everybody to have a big push and justify dropping a nice big fat juicy bomb × 2. You never know. Yeah.
Well, look, speaking of what they did do with it, did you see what the Islamic community were trying to propose?
Yeah, I'm gonna, yeah.
They're building the mega mosque on the site of 9/11.
I know this is your podcast, boys. I would refuse to answer that because it's just not the right thing. I have nothing against Islam, nothing against the Muslim community in any way, but that would have been completely and utterly the wrong thing.
I'm when I heard that, I remember hearing that like a year after it happened, and I was like, can they not be serious? Like, this isn't about Islam, or it's not. It's about,
and I don't believe that these terrorists are real Muslims or really following the faith of Islam. That's the big thing. But,
that's a chat for another day, right?
Yeah.
But like these, to the outside world, the Twin Towers were brought down by an act of terror by an Islamic terror group.
Exactly that.
Right. So that's the facts.
Okay,
Whether they are Muslim, not Muslim, that's another conversation. They're the facts, right? So to then place a mosque on the site of where they've killed these people was completely insensitive.
It shouldn't even. It should not have even been spoken about. It should never.
But it would have been spoke about, AD, because it would get this reaction this feeling I've got inside, and what you boys want to say. That's the reason why they pose it, and when it doesn't happen, all kinds of accusations are then thrown back. So it's just I'm shutting up there, because it's just, as you said, insensitive and just morally wrong to even pose it.
I saw an interview with the I think he was an imam, the guy who was the driving force behind the mosque, and he had said that he'd had a vision from God, and God had told him that he should open this mosque on the site of 9/11 because it would bring the communities together.
Yeah, of course. Civil war.
Salt and wounds rings a bell, but yeah.
Mate, do you know what? Exactly that, salt in the wound. And look at in fact, it ties in with it, because look at what's going on now with Afghanistan again. Salt in the wounds. You're interviewing the Taliban on TV. You're giving them limelight. You're doing all that. It's salt in the wounds and what's gone on.
Yeah, they're playing lip service a bit to that. 80% of the money that Afghans need is aid, isn't it? So they know that. That's the one thing. That's the reason why they let 200 people board a plane, and they're trying to make out they're doing everything right in that sense. But yeah, you're absolutely right. It's just again. I think there's leadership issues there, but that's.
Do you know that? Do you know a big chunk of the Afghans don't even know what 9/11 is?
I don't know. Again, is that real? So you're telling me they don't know why they're not been educated by the elders about they're occupying this land because?
I watched a video today. And they were going around some of the what are they called? Not districts. Let's call them counties, because that's what we call them, right? But they were going around some of the counties, and they were showing the pictures to like the local people, and then with a translator, and they were saying, "Do you know what this is? What this represents?" And none of them knew.
I think they're good at. I think that's the good thing, isn't it? They're really good at playing ignorant at that. But you'll never know. You'll never know. Like I said, it's you'll never know. I just don't. No one wants to speak, do they? No one wants to say anything. They're frightened to death. A lot of them. They play ignorant. That's my opinion.
Yeah.
I think that 98% of them are lying. There's my stats. No, I'm joking. I think that them stats are wrong, is what I would say. I'm sure that's what came back on that survey. That's what I'm saying.
And I suppose wrapping up with that is America's response to 9/11. I mean, we obviously know what they did. Would Mr. Chappell or Mr. Tilley, as head of state, done anything different, or what would you have done?
I would have gone in. Simple.
Exactly that. No ifs or buts. If we'd been attacked on homeland and they'd killed 3,000 citizens, and it's escalated out of a cell or a particular location by a particular leader, which, by the way, can I just rewind this to the beginning? I don't think he actually admitted to having any involvement, until it was like 3-4 years after. It's like 2004, 2005, when they finally got hold of some videos of him actually kind of admitting. Because before, he's just completely deflected it. The terror group itself took responsibility for it. But Bin Laden didn't say, "Hey, do you like that bit of work I've just pulled off?" He never did. He never did. So, but yeah, if the intel pointed to the fact of that somebody was responsible, a nation, or that's not a nation because it's not the Afghan people, is it? It's definitely, a self-proclaimed a state of an organisation within that. I'm like AD. It would be. I'd have hit them early, hard. Do you know what I mean? And started paving ways to invade. I don't know, but I'd have hit them.
Yeah, 100%. I think you don't got to, but I think anyone on our wavelength would feel the same. You wouldn't let that go unanswered. You just couldn't. You couldn't. And again, America, they couldn't. Whether conspiracy behind it or not, they could not let that go unanswered. If somebody's claiming it, then they go in and say, right.
Again, the morals of that, again, you're probably going to touch on it, Marco, is the conspiracy behind that is the gas lines that they wanted, the minerals and whatever else in the ground in Afghanistan. But yes, I get all that, and I know obviously the drugs and there's all the big things that come out of Afghanistan. But generally, I think that the directive was clear. They've attacked us on home soil. They've killed 3,000 people. We're going to war. Done.
Get in, yeah, get in. And that's what I love about some of the movies. Marco, we spoke about this actually the other day. You're watching quite a lot of films at the moment.
Yeah.
And
war movies, yeah.
Yeah, and anything that touches on that, when there's a terror attack, especially the 9/11. There's one movie, they see it on the news, they just turn around and the guy's in there at home with his wife and he just says, I'm going.
American Sniper, that.
Yeah, heads back in. That's it. He's done. He's away because
that mindset's different. Grave. Them Rangers, Green Berets, fucking SEALs. They're absolutely, and they absolutely, that flag and everything, and the people that it's unreal. It's listening to it. I just to go off on that, AD, actually, right? Rob O'Neill, the shooter, killed Osama bin Laden. I've been sending Marco a few bits and bobs. It came out about this withdrawal from Afghanistan, and he's obviously called Biden out massively, spineless. He said, give me a fucking team of 9 people. I'll go in there, shoot anybody that gets in the way, and I'll get every American out if you can't. And it's just like, you listen to it and you're thinking, yeah, okay, they can get a little bit carried away sometimes, these inverted commas Yanks, but the passion about no man left behind. He said they went there to get Marcus Luttrell back, lone survivor. Yeah. They went there for one man. Why are they not fucking going back for 200, 300, however many's left there? Yeah,
I love the American patriotism.
There's a lot that can be learned from it.
Absolutely love it.
Just going to say that's the reason I joined the military was because I seen how they were when I was visiting the States, and I just seen how they were reacting to their military personnel, and I was like,
but look how they reacted. How they reacted to us as on your stag do, because you were forces. So Daz, on the plane over from Dallas to Vegas, people were buying us drinks because they obviously heard AD were talking about being in the military, and people were like, "Thanks for your support."
Yeah, but it's like the highest level of accreditation. It's such.
We drank that plane drive.
Yeah. I'm sure you did, boys. Thanks for the invite.
It didn't cost a penny either. But no,
but do you not think like singing the national anthem when they're at school and everything is just, it all builds up to, for living for the country and that is it's washed here. We are the difference between the two nations.
We're ashamed to be British here.
We're not allowed.
We're not allowed. I'm saying the whole empire is frowned upon. It's like, that's a dirty little
upset people. They want it. Everything's got to be inclusive. Everything's got to be, I understand that, but not being able to fly the flag. Yeah, you're not allowed to fly the flag in your own country. I mean, it's just them rules, and it's and I don't care if this offends. It's bullshit. It's absolutely bullshit.
In the military over here, there was I'm not going to name the place and stuff, but we were told every time we left a base, you were not allowed to go anywhere in uniform, even if you're going home. You had to put something over the top of it, and you're thinking, why have I got to cover up the fact? And it's because there was quite a bit of trouble on people, airmen, soldiers, everything in uniform.
There's a big thing on that, AD, right? So obviously where my location is massively surrounded by air bases. One really bigger rather than a bit more of a notable one in terms of the big four, but obviously the QRF being out of
the listeners there, Daz.
Yeah. Well, I just don't want to let anybody where I fucking live after what I've said tonight. But obviously Coningsby. So with my job and what I do, I've obviously sold quite a few houses for kind of Typhoon pilots and whatever else that's in the past. What my relationship with these guys, because of my admiration, respect, and everything, and that came across quite well. Your name got circulated really quickly, and the brass at Wado, which is the base I'm referring to, they called us in and said, "Listen, do you want to be the RAF agent of choice for the area?" And I said, "I'd absolutely love that privilege." They said, "The only thing is you're going to need to go for a brief at another smaller little base that's heavy on intel at Digby." And the brief there is very much like you just said about obviously the covering up stuff. But they were telling me that there was at one time the top 3 people on the ISIS hit list were all Typhoon pilots based at Coningsby. They got that sophisticated information, and it came from people farming social media in Britain. They would put a post out, something really controversial, and military wives straight on it. And they were like, right, that's got a reaction. That's how simple it was. Find the hair, find the name. There's a picture. What does he do? Where's he? Bang. And it was done over. And they were saying it became really frightening. So I generally remember, because on the new build estate I live on is 23%. That was the stats originally is RAF. And, I remember them going through, and quite a lot of them having to remove passes out of windows of the cars to get on the basis while they're at home, to not give it away. Quite a lot of them went to taking the uniform off. And then going back to Adie's point is, I noticed, and this is kind of in the, after the 7/7 kind of stuff, really, when it hit England, is a lot of them started wearing them again. And I never forget, I stopped the guy in the local shop and I said to him, this is what I do, this is what I know and I've been dealing with. And I said, I noticed that he went, absolutely fucking right. We've all decided we're proud of this. We've earned the right to do this. We're proud of the job. And, why should we not wear it? And I thought, security maybe against yourself. But then I thought, do you know what? Fucking rock on, mate. Fair play. Fair play.
And mate, if only we took a leaf out of the state's book on not just the military, how they react to their police. Look, aside about all the stuff that goes on every now and again with it, but majority of it they respect. It's this whole respect thing. We don't have any respect over here.
No.
At all.
Have you ever seen the? I obviously know it was a veteran that killed him. But have you ever seen the Chris Kyle funeral?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is just absolutely insane.
Mate, I shed a tear.
Yeah, but it's just at the end of that, of obviously the film. But if there's lots of clips, it's just like, look at how much that guy is, respect, and how many people turned out, and the bridges are lined, and every street for miles. It's just wow. It was like
a Diana funeral.
It was a lot bigger. Let's be fair, probably a lot bigger.
Didn't they drive him across the whole of Texas?
Literally, it was miles, wasn't it? I don't know what the thing was, but everyone wanted to see him and pay the respects. Yeah,
I think it was all state line.
His funeral was in the Cowboy Stadium, wasn't it?
Yeah, AT&T.
Yeah,
but that's just a level of admiration and respect.
Mm.
Yeah.
Well, it was AD, and now we've got a president looking at his watch.
Yeah.
Looking at his watch, and that'll never be. He will never ever recover from that, because it was the most blatant thing. He looked like he didn't want to be there. So I think that's going to lead us on to probably another one, to be honest, about what's happening, what's going to happen next.
Yeah. Well, look, boys, that's a wrap on 9/11, because I think we're filtering into a few other bits of other bobs. But no, really interesting to hear your thoughts on it, your opinions on it. These are conversations that we're going to have where we're just regular guys, just regular opinions. We've never spoken about this sort of thing in the past, so it's quite interesting to hear what you guys think about sort of what happened and the opinion on it and stuff like that. And hopefully there's other regular people out there that are listening and like us just think, oh yeah, I didn't think about that, or I thought that was a bit weird.
Yeah.
So
they're good, mate. They are good, and obviously we'll be doing plenty more while we can before we get shut down.
Yeah, thank you for the invite, though. Do you want a little side note as we're leaving this?
Go on.
Breaking news: there's been legal papers served on somebody very famous. They've now actually been physically served by a US court. They've just been delivered. Yeah, but I'm not mentioning names, not allowed. Just been coming breaking news. They've been
it's on Sky. It's not a what's it called?
You can't speak. If you can't speak about it, is it Pizza Express, for God's sake? Leave him alone.
He doesn't sweat either, so I'm sure he's not sweating it
Much. Anyway.
Cheers, boys.
Take it easy.